Again, keep this separated. So here we go. Now we'll have 2 recordings. The training won't seem like it's 3 hours long or however long this is. You know what I'm saying? People look at the videos sometimes and they think, oh my gosh. Then they can choose which, if they want to listen to prayer part 2. That's not the one I meant to listen. Okay. So I had this thought about manifestation and sort of like, for example, last time there was an election, all of these polls that turned out to be wrong about like who was going to win an election or whatever. I don't know if the part about I don't know if the polling was intentionally misleading or if they were trying to manifest, because I will tell you, both sides know the power of it. Okay. So when I say both sides, I don't mean political parties. I mean light and dark, right? Like it, so I use that as an example, but it really can come down to anything. When you see somebody speaking about something, regardless of even if they realize it or not, but in those instances, I believe they do realize it. Anytime someone's speaking, they are manifesting the future. Period. What I'm talking to you about right now, what we talked about earlier, what Robin Sullivan talked about, the way she talks about her team, the way she talks about her business, the way she talks about what the products do for people, the way I talk about what the products do for people. I feel like I know I share this all the time, but I feel like I'm supposed to tell y'all a kind of a weird, embarrassing story. When I first started in photography, and I'm sure I've told this before, but something inside me was telling me, you're about to be excellent at this. And I wasn't yet. But I specifically remember going to lunch with someone, not just me personally, several people. Our family went to lunch with someone, and one of the people from the group that we went with asked me what I do. I said, well, I'm basically the best photographer in town. And as I said it, I thought, oh my God, I embarrassed myself saying it. But I have thought about that sentence. I think about it all the time, honestly. I feel like it was the very first time that I knew what I was doing. I asked my daughter the other day, if she knows when she does it. Because I'm like, I know that she does do it, manifest on purpose. Or I think that she does it on purpose, thinks that she knows what she's doing. But I was like, have you always known that you do it? And she's kind of like, and I was like, me too. I said, I think that's a gift to know in advance that people, not to exclude anyone, that people do that. And we started talking about her situation. And I just said a sentence, and since it's literally, there's only a handful of us on here, I just said, were you attempting to manifest traits in the person you picked? And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, there's danger in that because you're speaking highly of someone when the proof is not there yet in the physical. Had me tricked. Like speaking highly of a person in her life, let's say it was a friend, such an honest friend, such a sweet friend. You're manifesting these things, right? And I believed that it was that way. And I asked her, I was like, were you attempting? And she was like, yeah. I said, okay, we're going to work on something. We're going to she's going to do this. She's very grown up, I didn't realize how mature until all this. But I said, next time, instead of the traits, we manifest the right person. Instead of the right traits in the wrong person. And I was like, it saves everybody a load of heartache in the end, you know? And she's like, we both, even as I said it, even as I was thinking it, I was like, oh, wow. And, this whole exercise has been eye-opening for both of us. Even, I guess what I'm saying is, I didn't know that until I said it. Like, I actually have probably done it before. Even in my business, and I believe that that's why I'm supposed to say this to you. Perhaps you've had not a hard no. Perhaps you've had somebody even sign up as a wholesale ambassador, and you feel they have the potential, and so you are loading them down with information. You are on the phone with them. You are doing the things, and you are talking the talk to them about the things, because you think, I want a diamond ambassador as a level 1, right? And this girl shows all the potential. This girl, or maybe they've signed up, maybe they haven't. Maybe they've enrolled, I should say. Maybe they've enrolled, maybe they haven't. But you're putting your eggs in a basket, and you're like, I think that's going to be the basket that hatches the chicken. And sometimes it's not. So the manifestation of the right people, not only in our businesses, but I mean, it very much applies to our businesses. The manifestation, I have a lot, I literally, my brain just went ding, 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 ding. I thought of about 10 different examples of the way we manifest things in our lives. And I believe what I'm supposed to say is coupled with godly wisdom. Like, you're manifesting whether you like it or know it or not by what you say. So you may be manifesting negative stuff because of how you talk about yourself, or how you talk about your business, how you talk about your marriage, your children, your messy house, You see what I'm saying? Like, you may be manifesting things that we would perceive are not good. So I'm not saying that things are or not. I'm kind of to that place. I feel like I'm supposed to remain more neutral about things. Now, that being said, there are all these areas of our life that even our thoughts, our emotions, our words, all those things are manifesting, good or bad. And if you are one of those that it's aware and awake and you're intentionally manifesting, I think you have to couple it with godly wisdom, literally asking, am I manifesting traits or the right person in my life? Am I manifesting traits out of the person that's sitting here? I can remember my grandma saying one time, I was dating some boy, and I was probably a freshman high school, and she met him and didn't think too highly of him. And she's like, is this a boy you would marry? And I'm like, I'm 15 years old. And I was like, don't be so old. That seemed like so antiquated, what she said to me. I'm like, she's like, is this a boy you would marry? And I'm like, well, no. Then why are you bothering dating him? And I was like, God, why's grandma got to act so on the prairie? You know what I'm saying? But the older I get and the more I kind of understand things, the more I'm like, I'm not saying that somebody's doing it the wrong way. If they're dating somebody they wouldn't marry, whatever. But I'm saying if you take that concept and you apply it to if you're if you've got something filling that position that's not the right one, then you're sort of anti-manifesting the right one. Does that make sense? And I even go, when I teach at a breakthrough class, I even get down as far as to say, if you're looking for a particular kind of aesthetic, like say in a room, you have an idea of what you would like it to look like. You've been saving some money. You're going to eventually buy yourself maybe a new comforter and a pillow and a whatever, and something to hang on the wall or over the door or the window or whatever it is that you might have in your mind. And if you keep nickel diming it and you're like, I found something on clearance, this will work. And you put it up there, you've blocked. And I know this sounds like material things, but this seems to be what people understand. We do it. So if you put something on the wall where you really wanted to put a gorgeous mirror, but you don't have the money for the mirror that you want, whatever, but you find something that will do, and you put something on the wall and you're like, every time you look at it, you think, close enough. I mean, that's not what I wanted, but close enough. I don't know, close enough. That, to me, it's all the same thing. It's the same. Yeah, it creates a feeling that's opposite of high frequency. Like, it may look fine, it may have filled a spot, but when you look at it, your brain thinks, close enough. Now, some people's personality might be so thrilled, and sometimes this is the case for me. Perhaps what I would really have liked to had was the Gucci version of a mirror. I don't know what that is, but I'm just saying, like, the super fantastic, gorgeous, whatever, that I know has a price tag that I will never pay. And then I find something that's so close to it at like, 90% off. That's a different thing. That you walk by it and you're like, oh yeah, it's about the feeling, right? Connected to it. And also, in that instance, I have in breakthrough class, I always have people take the Princeton Popper test. It's something, I think Chris Valentin put it out. Anyway, it's like one of the questions has to do with, do you only ever shop in clearance sections? And I thought, ooh, when I got to that question, I thought pretty much like literally, it's like my brain is trained to see garage sale signs, and my brain is trained to look for the red signs in a store that say clearance. And I did that in the beginning because of necessity. And now I do it because after years of doing something for necessity and learning the ropes, you go, if I ain't mad about wearing last spring's stuff this spring, which I'm not, I mean, any given time, that doesn't bother me. If it's something I like, then I might still do that. And if it's not a matter of devaluing myself, like I'm not worthy enough to have Target's name brand. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I was, I don't know. I've thought about it. She said, what am I thinking about doing another breakthrough class? I kind of do it on Tuesday nights, just a piece at a time. Refresher course. For some reason, this manifestation thing has been so strong on my mind. And I think I want to give you guys a challenge to first ask for heaven's agenda over whatever. Let's take your area of concern or area of the subject, basically the subject right now, whatever your subject might be, your marriage, your business, whatever it is. On this call, we're talking about business. So I'll say, take the subject and you say, God, I actually want to know, I want to be in partnering with the plan for my business. Definitely don't want to be on playing for the enemy's team against my finances. And I believe with everything in me, when we intently listen And I don't mean in that moment, sometimes in that moment, but sometimes in the next few days, God begins to unravel an answer for you. And you have to be like, a step at a time. Is that you, God? Is that you? Like, as God begins to unveil the answer to the question you ask. And then once you realize, okay, I see it, I get it, I can see that that's the best plan of action for me. And then you double down on it and you start manifesting that. Not something that looks like that or your version of that, but in partnering with heaven. I think that's an aspect that I have sort of always instinctively sort of known, but I don't know that I ever thought to teach it like that. And so I'd like to issue a challenge to you guys tonight to think about an area of your life that you would like to see different, improved. And just tonight when I pray over us, if you would just begin to be in agreement with me about that for your own life. I usually pray in first persons. I don't know why, it's just easier for me. I don't feel like when I pray in first person, I don't feel like I'm imposing my thoughts and prayers onto you, but you can be in agreement with me, or you can, as we're praying, you can be customizing it, personalizing it. So, Father God, we just come to you tonight, collectively and individually. And God, tonight I just ask that I'm looking for answers in regards to certain areas of my life. Answers, solutions, improvement. And I'm specifically asking you, God, show me your plan in those areas. I'd love to have a blueprint of some sort so that I can, when I'm going to link arms, I know that I'm linking arms in the right place. God, I ask that you would begin to reveal to me what your plan is in these specific areas. And I just want you to begin to think. I want you to get even a picture. I was telling my friend Amber the other night, and this may be, some of you may be in this place. I was telling her the other day, until I started teaching a breakthrough class, I didn't realize how seldom people dream. And I don't mean dream while they're asleep. I mean, dream about the future, have ideas. I can remember after 1 week of breakthrough class, one of the girls reached out to me and she's like, okay, that thing that we did today where you wanted us to picture, like a heart's desire, a goal, a dream. She's like, I don't know how to do that. And I was like, don't know how to do it. Okay. And she said, I said, did anything pop in your mind? And she's like, yeah, I just want the bathroom floor to not be rotted. I just want to be able, she's like, I've asked my husband to do this, this, this. He doesn't seem to have time. It's this, this, this. And she's like, if the floor just wasn't caving in, she's like, that's as far as my brain knows how to get. And I was like, oh, shoot, I've been there before. And so we talked about it some. And she's a person who's in my life now who is a manifester. And this has been a process for her. Like, she's learned it. And so if you're in that place where if I say dream, goals, and your brain is going, I can't, I'm just going to ask Holy Spirit to part that for you right now. I don't know what it's called, or I would call it out. Distraction. God, we don't have any interest in any spirit of distraction. We definitely don't want to be partnering with it. God, we want to be in focus and in tune. with your design and your plan over our lives, our businesses, our all of it. I speak this even, I mean, my kids are adults, but I speak this over my kids right now. Now I want you to think of a time in your life when you made a decision, without first getting God's plan, and how you had to go through a consequence of the hard way. Like, oh my gosh, you circle back around and you're in worse shape than when you first started or whatever. And I want you to get a very clear picture of that. And literally, I'm going to give you a second. If any of you can come up with anything, I'm not going to make you share it or anything. But if that resonated with you, where you're like, oh gosh, yeah, I can come up with, like Becky said, lots of it. If you can think of something, the first thing that pops in your mind, would you just let me know? Just say, yes, I know something came to my mind. I know, like an instance, situation where I chose a particular, like, fork in the road or whatever, and had to circle back around, beat up and bruised because of it. Yeah. Now, if that is a memory that has caused you pain or shame, right now, supernaturally release it and just say, gosh, I'm grateful for the lesson that came with that, so I don't have to go around that same curve again. I mean, so many, and literally go through the Rolodex. If you have several things that pop in your mind, decisions you've made, choices you've made, I'm just going to give you a second. And then just release it. Let it go. I don't know if it helps you to picture it, releasing it like a bird that was in your hand, releasing it like a butterfly, whatever. God, we just call Chuck. This is, I'm responding to the chat here. We call Chuck into perfect rhythm in God's original design. God, we cast out spirit of trauma, the spirit of infirmity, in Yeshua's mighty name. God, we thank you for miracles from the last time that we did this. God, so much gratitude. My heart's just like, gushing. And I speak no to uncertainty. God, I believe that you are raising up a company within humanity, like you're raising up a company of warriors who can choose to see the miraculous in the spirit and grab it and bring it here. Like, I believe in miracles and I won't settle for something less. I mean, wow. Like a stadium full of people who came with expectation in their heart. And as we fill the void, imagine a completely packed but silent stadium of people. And let's say I take the microphone and I begin to talk, saying exactly what I'm saying right now. We're going to be completely quiet. And we're all going to basically come together in gratitude right now. We're going to all come together in a belief that we won't leave without a miracle. We want to see it. We want to, by the way, there's 5 sources. I'm just beginning to really wrap my brain around this in the last few weeks. We have 5, maybe 6 ways to identify what is going on. 5 ways to determine what reality is. My eyes tell me that my wall is turquoise. I don't know if that's reality or not, but that's what my eyes tell me. My nose tells me that we cooked something in here earlier. Pretty sure that's right. I ate it. So 2 of my senses, right? My ears are telling me that we're listening to whole tones right now. Evidence. I believe we're supposed to begin to call things into evidence that our senses haven't yet perceived. I believe that that's the veil. I believe that that's the difference between the way we live and new heaven, new earth. Is I believe we're supposed to call the miraculous without doubt into this realm. So maybe my eyes need to be healed, or maybe my eyes need an upgrade so that I can see things for the way they really are, and I'll quit calling them what they are not. Maybe my ears need an upgrade so that I can hear the angelic, so that I can hear literally the voice of God. Maybe my sense of smell needs an upgrade. Maybe my eyes, the thing we've studied about the colorblind thing, I've talked to you about this recently. This is really strong on my mind, that some children, like some people, already see, I want to say it's millions more colors because they have an activated cone that your average person doesn't have. Now, that doesn't mean that they live on a different planet where there are more colors. That means that the colors are already there, but their cone, the 4th cone, has been activated and they can see all the rest of the color. It makes me wonder if they can see, if there's an upgrade, and if there is, I'm asking for it, where you could see into God's realm. I'm even hesitant to say heaven because in my pretty solid belief, there is a something that you might call a second heaven. I've heard it called that. Basically, there's a plans of the enemy place where you could see and hear the demonic. Not interested in that because that's not what I want to partner with. So literally, God, if I have anything like that open, if I have a browser open for listening to the plans of the enemy and agreeing with it, seeing the plans of the enemy and agreeing with it. By the way, this pandemic very, very much plays into this. If I'm listening to the plans of the media and agreeing with it, I can promise you they do not have heaven's agenda as they speak to us. That's not what their agenda is. So if you have agreements with that, it's agreements with something that I'm not interested in having an agreement with. So the divine realm, God's godly realm. So my perception right now with the senses that I have, the 5 senses, and then there's like a 6th that I probably is a combination of the other or something like that. But people joke around about having a 6th sense or extrasensory perception or whatever, but ESP. But I'm talking about whatever, there's something else. For a lot of people believe it's actually here, it's in the pineal gland. And if you do very much research, you'll start noticing that there's something I just told you to do a minute ago where I'm like, I'm not leaving. We're all in agreement. We're not leaving until we see manifestations of the miracle. Well, there's a story in the Bible about Jacob who, I'm just loose paraphrase here, wrestled with an angel, wouldn't let it go until he was blessed. And then his name was changed to Israel, Jacob's name. And then the cliff that it happened on, they called it Peniel. You tell me there's not some metaphor in that, right? Okay, so there's a ladder involved in Jacob's story. Has a ladder. His story, and I'm just saying, there's metaphor in this story to be had for those who are looking for it. So Israel became his name, where the 12 tribes came from, the 12 tribes of Jacob / Israel. And this wrestling match, now I want you to imagine right here inside, you've got a gland inside here that they believe most people, it's calcified because of fluoride. But if it weren't calcified, you'd be able to tune in better. That's why I only drink well water, all these things. So imagine if there was a wrestling match that happened on the place called Peniel, a wrestling match. And Jacob basically made the angel tap out. And that's what that's what I described earlier in the stadium. I'm not letting you go until you bless me. We've all shown up here today in this stadium, and we've decided not to settle. We want God and only God. We want God's finest for us. And I mean, that means letting go of a lot of things. I mean, that means letting go of sin nature and letting go of anything that really connects you hardcore to this dimension that we're in. Whatever it is, I can promise you it's not healed. And this may help for those of you, I'm not going to say who and I'm not going to say the word, but when I've used a word that freaks you out, I'm describing it right now. Like if you're heavily connected to what this is, like earth, the earthly realm, the lower realm, the realm that belongs to the enemy according to scripture. If you're heavily connected to it, every string that you let go of, I just thought of it. Every string that you let go of is one step closer to, it's that wrestling match of, I believe, the carnal, like the fleshly, the desire, the, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, whatever that is, and you're letting go of that, or even materialism. I'm talking about Gucci mirrors here too, right? Like, or food or whatever it is that we have on a pedestal. And as you let go and you release and you disconnect yourself, and you're like, actually, that's very soulish things. And as you are letting go and you are severing, by the way, I have to be off of social media to get in this space, by the way, because social media brings me back into, that's why I've really begun using social media only to work my business. It's not really, I don't get on there for enjoyment, because I realized how low frequency it really is. Now, it may not be for everyone, but my personality, when I get on there, I'm like, and this is complete 100% human stuff. Like, it's not of God's design, but I'm like, she's talking about that again. Ugh. Oh, that's a cute dress. I wonder where she got that from. Oh, an argument. Oh, what are they talking about here? Oh, shoot. Why is she doing that? Okay, none of that. God doesn't have conversations like any of that. Like any of that. I do not believe that God has conversations like that. I think God probably looks at social media and is like, you people are truly bored, aren't you? Like bored, or like have some sort of weird fetish with depressing stuff. Now, I'm not saying that everything is depressing, but I'm saying I am careful. I'm careful. And I can also see right now I just saw that a local pharmacist has weighed in. I saw it drop down just a second. He's weighed in, I'm quite sure, probably on my vaccine thing. Probably, if I had to guess from past experience, I'm not going to guess because maybe he didn't. I'm trying not to assume. But this is what social media can do, is bring out the backwards brainiacs and people who have more institutionalized brainwash than you to correct you. You know what I'm saying? According to the, see, this is what it brings out in me. I better to stay off of social media. You see what I'm saying? Okay, I'm going to go look and see. Actually, didn't argue with me, said interesting, and asked a question. Wow. Yes, social media can eat up an incredible amount of time, and it's also an indicator of when I need to go outside and get grounded. When I feel like I need to get on social media because I'm bored or even depressed or something, if I think that it's going to help me, if it's going to do anything besides just give me a distraction from stuff I need to be dealing with, I'm like, go outside, pet your dog, love on the cat, get in the pool, whatever, but not be glued to the screen. God, I thank you that you have given us better resources than what we sometimes settle for. I'm going to love the chance. Ooh, I'm going to read this. Becky said, because you mentioned Jacob, who became Israel, the part about manifestation is scriptural. Romans 4:17, as it is written, I have made thee a father of many nations before him who he believed, even God, who quickeneth the dead and calleth those things which are not as though they are. That's what we were just talking about. Wow. Yes. Yes. Calleth those things which are not as though they are. I would say that I have not ever studied this in the original language, Romans. I've never studied this in its original language, but if I did, I would probably find stuff that's talking about calling those things which are not as though they are. It probably has a lot to do with our senses not being healed. They're part of this earth, and I'm little at a time disconnecting my senses from this earth. I don't want to be calling things, I don't want to be using my eyes and saying, ooh, I saw that pharmacist comment drop down. Past experience tells me he usually argues, right? I don't want to be doing that. I want to be able to see him for how God sees him. I don't want to talk about his brainwash. I'm just being completely transparent with you guys. Like, I don't want that. Not interested in it. That's what my brain has perceived using the senses that I have that I don't believe are redeemed yet. I keep saying healed and I really mean redeemed, I think. Our senses not being redeemed. So, God, I thank you that even as we are on here tonight, that your Holy Spirit fire will fall on our senses so that they would be redeemed. And if there are other senses that are not known about or correctly taught to us about, that God, that you would begin to divinely teach us about other ways to assess situations and have evidence as to what is and isn't happening. I can remember my mom saying to me one time, my mom's one of those people who's pretty left-brained and straightforward and cut and dried about things. But I was saying something about, I believe there are angels, Mom. I believe that, like I can't see them, but da-da-da. And she goes, of course there's angels. Now, that shocked me to hear my mom say this. I was like, really? You do? And she goes, oh yeah, there's too many cars driving on the road all day long every single day. And people who are not paying attention, there should be accidents everywhere. Good point. I literally think about her saying that all the time. I think, yeah, because not only are there people that are distracted, there are people that we would perceive as idiots driving around. I'm just saying. Like, they're everywhere. You look at them and you're like, it's an idiot. I got to get away from that idiot and this idiot and that. I'm not calling them that. I'm just saying what our brain tries to tell us. I'd say that idiot has a great angel because they're still alive, right? See people doing crazy stuff all the time. Yes. Oh, that's a good one. I like what Christia said. Praying for redemption and healing in regards to the word discipline. I'm just going to say what my brain thought of. I don't know. I haven't talked to you about this. So, but possibly your perception of the word discipline is a negative perception. And that's been mine. If I had said what you said, that's what I would have meant.
It is. We talked about it on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, that it's a word that I have a very negative emotion, shame, embarrassment attached to from childhood and being overweight.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. They probably talked about the fact that it comes from the word disciple. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was our small group, so there was like 10 of us. We were just kind of discussing that, and I looked up the Greek word about training, and sometimes it can be used as even some of the definitions that I looked up were kind of negative, but in regards to the Greek or Hebrew, it was as in training up a child or following because of being a disciple of Christ, learning.
Yeah. It's the word discipline. Like if I were going to put an image with it, it gives me that whole school marm with a ruler slapping you on the hand, like very child, images of children. And I think that it brings that kind of, I think because of the ways in which it's been used, kind of like if you think about it like this, love is another word that gets widely used and shouldn't be all the time. Like, oh, I love this and I love that. And oh, we love each other, me and this one boy, or love. I love ice cream and I love it. And before long, the actual word itself, or the actual word itself, while it is a positive word, it can lose its meaning because of the misuse of the word. So probably the original, like you're talking about, the original definition of discipline probably way more lines up with what we feel would be the right way to interact with our own children and wish that we had been interacted with by our parents. And then when we think of, God's discipline, we would look at it more like training, like you're talking about training, raising up.
And I think that, I think sometimes our view, even with discipline with God, is based on what we have experienced. So I think it's the history of the word, like you talked about. I don't know if it was the same night that we talked about the healing stuff when that miracle happened, but it was definitely something, because there was some other things that I prayed about, like, I think we've talked about the praying medic, about if there's those emotions attached to it, and feeling it, calling it out, asking God to heal your heart, and then receiving it.
Yes.
So he heals that. And I know that it's not a bad word because it's in the Bible often.
Yeah.
And so I think we've taken it and really messed it up.
I agree. I was watching something the other day that was talking about how the English language, this was an opinion, but he was saying how the English language is literally anti the, the way the way the English language is used. He said it was created to, I don't know if this was intentional or not. He said it was created to be opposite of manifesting new heaven, new earth, opposite of manifesting even biblical prophecy, because they dumbed down the words so much that, and then they switched it over to English language, which is basically a lazy language. We say the example of love in the Bible, and I'm sure many of you know this, but just in case someone doesn't, if you go back into a concordance, if you're ever interested in doing this, I think Bible Hub online, and maybe there's probably other apps that do it, that you can type in a scripture and you can push the STR, like instead of like KJV, like King James Version, you can type in STR and it'll pull up concordance, Strong's Concordance, and it'll let you read the original language. And you're like, well, I don't speak it. But what it's doing, it's translating each phrase, each verse, and it lets you see the original word that they translated into the word love. And they, for every single time that they said the word philos, which means brotherly love, they just said love. When they translate it, they're like, oh, there it is, love again, love. So love your neighbor, love your cat, love your daughter, love ice cream, all different kinds of love. Every time it says agape, which is godly love, unconditional love, it just says love. God so agape the world. Well, the word is not the same one as philos. It's not the same word as eros, E-R-O-S. By the way, eros, E-R-O-S, is, if I have this right, I studied this years ago, but is the whole romantic love. And it's like, I think it might even be a name of a Greek god, maybe Greek-Roman god, Greek god, and like literally a Cupid, like eros, like Cupid, okay? And so like every time in the Bible when it says someone eros someone else, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, it doesn't say it doesn't translate as romantic love, it just says love. And so the confusion and the dumbing down, you understand? Like if God said romantic love, if God said brotherly love, if God said unconditional love, those are important adjectives. Because when you're trying to figure out what does this mean, and if you think that all of it means romantic love or all of it means brotherly love or whatever it is that your definition in your, important distinctions. And that's just with the word love. It's the whole Bible has been translated into a lazy language. And so when I want to go study, for example, I'd encourage you to go study Peniel. Why'd they name it that? I think it's a really important thing to do. And I'm not trying to tell anybody what it means. Like I'm pretty much stayed away from what it means, but it gave me a vivid picture going, okay, a battle happened on top of Peniel, which is your third eye. It's your ability to be able to, it's your satellite, it's your tuner inner. And a battle happened on it. Why'd they name it that? Why'd they name this after, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's something, it's weird because once I determined the other day, something was said about Peniel, I was looking it up, and then I was like, they named that. Now, wait a minute. What does that have to do with Israel? What does it have to do with Israel? Like, I haven't studied it in depth. I'm going to. That's on my list of many things I want to do. Why was there a battle on the Peniel? Why? What does it matter? Why does it matter that our, thing that catches all the microwaves or the waves that, tune into the Holy Spirit, there's a battle being fought over it? It's definitely worth looking into. Also, the Jacob's Ladder thing, I heard a thing a long, long time ago that had something to do with DNA. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that before. I didn't research it at the time. I wasn't interested. But Jacob's like a DNA helix looks like this. And have you ever looked at a DNA helix and it looks like a ladder? Yeah. I want to study all that. I don't know what that all means. Like, I can't even tell you the story well enough to tell you why it would be a metaphor for DNA. I don't know, but it's interesting. I would join in. See what you said, Becky. I'd love to listen. I feel so ill-equipped when I think, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas that I've never heard anybody say before. I think, so I'm probably wrong. That's what I always think. I think, gosh, why is nobody talking about, the fact that the 12 tribes of Israel came out of Jacob that fought with, wrestled an angel. I think there may even be a big question mark around whether he was fighting with an angel or wrestling with an angel or a man. I can't remember if that's right or not, but there's a couple instances in the Bible where similar to that. The one about I want to say when she looked no, I don't know. I'll think of it later. There's something to do with an angel and it being in question whether the people knew it was an angel or not. And I think it may be a Sodom reference. Like they say, at one point they call it an angel, and I'm going, yeah, that was the problem. Like interspecies problem, you think? And people are like, no, those people didn't know it was an angel. And I'm like, I don't know so much. I don't think God would have had us read about it. Anyway, that's my thing. That's my other 2 cents for the night. Okay, I'm going to close this out. Does anybody else have I'm going to see. I'm going to look again, see who else on here. All the girls and Jetty. I started to tease him and say, Jetty, you want to close us out in prayer? Just kidding. I'm just going to say this. I have something I want to say. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, Lord, our rock and our salvation. While we're here, I'm going to hit the Strongs. I've never done this one before. May the words, says utterance, of my mouth, says mouth of man, organ of speech. This is in the concordance. In the meditation, says meditation, resounding music, plotting. So the meditation says meditation, resounding music, and plotting of my heart. So I would say, oh wait, let me see what my heart is. Of my inner man, of my heart says, of my inner man, mind, will, heart, and understanding. So let's read that again. Let's say it like this. May the utterance of my mouth and the meditation, resounding music, musing, and plotting of my inner man, my mind, will, heart, and understanding, my inner midst, be a delight, a pleasure, favorable, and acceptance. In your sight is translated to say face, surface. In your presence, in the face of Jehovah, the rock cliff. And my Redeemer is to redeem, act as a kinsman redeemer, avenge, revenge, ransom, do the part of a kinsman. So I'm going to read back through it really quick again. Say, may the utterance of my mouth and the meditation, resounding music, musing and plotting of my inner man, my mind, will, heart, and understanding, be pleasurable, delightful, favorable, and of goodwill and acceptance in front of and in the presence of Jehovah, the existing one. My rock, comma, cliff, my redeemer, my kinsman redeemer, the one that avenges, revenges, ransoms, and does the part of a kinsman. To do the part of next of kin, so family. I'm just reading the very last part of this. It says, to redeem by payment, to redeem with God as subject, individuals from death. Israel from Egyptian bondage, Israel from exile, to redeem oneself, to be redeemed. Masculine singular construct. This is what Redeemer is saying. The word, the actual word is Wegoali. Wegoali is what they've translated to Redeemer. Now, if you'd like to see where I got that, I typed in on Bible Hub, which looks like this. Whoop. Okay, so I typed in a keyword because I didn't know if it was Psalms. I didn't know it was Psalm 19:14. And then at the top here, I've got it pulled up where it says, I think maybe right there, it says STR. Instead of these others, it says STR. That's Strong's. So once I have it pulled up, I hit Strong's, and then it looks like this. Hang on. May the words, and then it breaks down the definition. The actual Hebrew word, noun, masculine, plural, construct, Strong's Hebrew. And then you can actually click the word and see every other place that it's used in Scripture. The interesting part about this is if you click every other place it's used in the Bible, not every single time is it going to say, may the words. For example, let's see. I would say if you click of my mouth, that one's probably going to say mouth every single time because there's not any other definition of it, really. But when you get down to meditation, the word that they've translated into meditation, it could be, they may literally translate that same original word into something else in a different scripture. It's very eye-opening and helpful, honestly, especially on a confusing scripture. I use it all the time. It's helped me to understand things that have literally been mistaught on purpose. Maybe it's not mistaught all the time on purpose. Maybe I learned it from someone who learned it from someone who learned it from someone who originally taught it wrong on purpose. And then the person who's taught it to you might not be teaching it to you on purpose wrong. But when you can go back and look at the original, you're like, oh my goodness. Some of it's very telling as to why. Some of it you can read it and go, I see why that was originally misinterpreted on purpose to control, manipulate, whatever. These are the type things are the reason I believe that Jesus was turning the tables over. Like, don't use my name in vain. Don't tell somebody that God told you something that he did not tell you. Don't manipulate people using my scriptures. Don't. That's what I believe. And so when you go back and you study stuff about money, that's a real good one to get into. Study the scriptures about money and what it says about money. And then take it to the Strong's Concordance and read the original words. I don't argue with religion with anybody anymore unless they've done the concordance. And then we can talk. Like, if they want to argue with me and they're arguing from King James Version, I'm like, I don't know what to say to you except for go to the concordance. If it's worthy of an argument, not all of it is worthy of an argument, but so may the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart be pleasing in your sight, one true God, our Redeemer, our rock. Kinsman, yes. Sorry, I clicked something. Just 1 second. Okay. What they have taken a word. I think it's probably pronounced Wegoli. It's looks like something you can't even. It doesn't even have a English alphabet or whatever we call our alphabet. But it says conjunctive, W-A-W, wa, verb, Q-A-L, I don't know what that means, participle, masculine singular construct, first person common singular. Now, all of that was to tell you it's referencing someone in the male form. Sometimes it'll give you the tense, like before, after, later, then, that kind of stuff in that first part, okay? To redeem, act as kinsman / hyphen redeemer. Avenge, revenge, ransom. Do the part of a kinsman. That's the first definition. The second one is to act as a kinsman, do the part of next of kin. This makes me think of like, what's it called when a family member has medical, oh, I'm sorry, my Redeemer. It was, and my Redeemer. My rock, I'll finish saying what it says. Okay, so by marrying, here's another, by marrying brother's widow to beget a child for him. That's also a redeemer. To redeem a widow, to redeem from slavery, to redeem land, to exact vengeance, to redeem by payment, to redeem with God as subject, individuals from death, Israel from Egyptian bondage, Israel from exile, to redeem oneself, to be redeemed. Now, how it goes into this is it says, may the words of my mouth and the meditation is the one I really stopped on this one when we were just now doing this. Meditation, resounding music, plotting, may the plotting of my heart. Think of that like that. May the plotting of my heart, may the meditation of my heart, may the resounding music of my heart, may the frequency of my heart. Resounding music is for sure that, if you ask me. Of my inner man is what it actually says. My mind, my will, my heart, my understanding, my inner part, my soul. My mind, knowledge, thinking, reflection, my memory, my inclination, my resolution, my determination. These are all in there. Be pleasing, delightful, good, acceptable, favorable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer, kinsman. I would say ransom.
Here's why here's why I wanted you to go back over that, because I was trying to keep it all clear in my head.
Okay.
When you said kinsman, I
Yep.
knew kind of what the biblical meaning or whatever of kinsman is, or what the job or whatever of kinsman is.
Okay.
And so it's from the Hebrew root Goel, from the root meaning to redeem. But this is a part of this definition from Easton's Bible Dictionary that jumped right out at me.
Okay.
It says the kinsman is also required to redeem his relative who had sold himself into slavery. Now, to me, that's just huge, because we've sold ourselves into slavery to sin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
oh Lord, my God, my Redeemer, He redeems us.
Yep. That's
He
good.
buys us back. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know.
No, that's good. Power of attorney is the word I was looking for, and you said it. I think it comes down to us relinquishing that power ourselves. Right? Like, as long as you have power of attorney, I think it's a decision to what some people would say a higher power. You see what I'm saying? Like, when you go to an AA meeting, they say your higher power. But it's really about God's love, God's grace, and trusting in God. Say hi, kiddo. Yay! Okay.
What you were talking about a minute ago, about, I mean, I cut my teeth on the King James Version Bible. It's all I was taught. The church I grew up in, it was like, if it wasn't KJV, it was anathema. It was like of the devil. And when all the different translations started coming out, I mean, you were like a reprobate if you even referred to another translation. And I'm talking about only in the last maybe 3 years since I've been exposed to you guys, which I've been exposed to y'all longer than 3 years, but in about the last 3 years has it become abundantly clear to me, not just because of what you guys have, what I've learned from you guys, but from other sources. I'm sorry, I cannot put my face on video. Y'all can't see me.
You're right.
But have I realized and that everything I was taught, everything I learned, everything I know, in quotation marks, is questionable. And literally only like 2 days ago did I realize that a certain church translated the Bible and decided what books were to be included in the Bible. And there's like 50 of them that didn't make the cut. And James and Jude didn't make the first cut. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? How much have I been lied to? So everything you're saying, how much have I been misled on? And the people that taught that to me, they were also misled. Everything you've been saying, I want to confirm that I believe that is 100% true. We have been misled and don't even realize it. And the people that misled us probably didn't realize it either.
I mean, I think I kind of liken it to what happens in medicine. They go to school not realizing the school is very jaded in one direction or not. So they go to medical school, and that medical school that they went to had an agenda. They thought they were learning the gospel of medicine, and they come and they literally often, and this happens in both medicine and in religion, they often talk condescending because of the way they were taught, without going to the trouble to actually go do the digging themselves. They're like, I know this because I learned it at my college. And you can't tell me, I don't care what seminary somebody learned it in, if that every seminary is clean from agenda. I don't believe that. There's no way anybody can convince me that every seminary, every Bible college is free from agenda, because humans run it. So there's an agenda somewhere. And so basically you have to pick it apart and figure out what is and what isn't the truth. And also, I mean, once you start studying, I've said this before, but once you start studying the history of the Bible, especially in the day and time that we live in right now, where you look around and you go, that was a lie. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about other stuff. You look and you go, gosh, I see the agenda there. And then you look to your right and you're like, golly, look at these people standing up as experts and telling us what we can and can't believe, what we can and can't talk about, even like, fact checkers, whatever. Who assigned you the role of that? That is the biggest bunch of nonsense, and it all is agenda driven. So for us to think that, someone taught a whole bunch of people from the Midwest, a whole bunch of people who believe that they're doing what's right and that are in the Midwest, taught them that there's only one version of Bible that's actually right. And what they don't realize is that was actually translated not by theologians. It was translated often by actually people who practice witchcraft, because they just happened to be people who could translate. It would be like walking into the supermarket and being like, look, I need somebody who can translate something from English into Spanish or vice versa. And you don't care anything about the person except for that they're bilingual. They don't have to have qualities. They don't have to have, God's heart in mind. Literally, the King James Version was, study the King, you probably have, but study the King James Version and how it came to be sometime, and you'll just be like, and that's why anytime there's something, a question and something, I'm like, let's just go back to the Strongs and see what the original language was trying to tell us, rather than what that church or that group or that organization that has an agenda is trying to tell us. And also I will say too, before you go jumping into something like this, it's very important that you don't carry confirmation bias into this conversation with yourself. So if you're not familiar with confirmation bias, that's basically if you want to believe something and you're trying to prove to yourself that it's right, that's different than actually researching. Like, for example, if your favorite grandpa, the person you love most in this world, taught you that a certain scripture meant a certain thing, and you're not willing to let go of that no matter what truth is put in front of you, then that's confirmation bias. And you're looking for something to prove yourself right, or prove your grandpa right, or prove your favorite pastor right, or prove your church right, or whatever. But I say, before I go studying any of this, every time, I say, I'm only interested in truth, because I'm not really interested in extending the life of a lie that should be on life support at best. Like lies that have been agenda driven. It's like, I can't believe that people have been falling for these lies as long as they have. Those kind of lies. If you're gonna go, not just, it sounds like I'm talking to Becky, but I'm saying anybody, if you're going to go digging into this stuff, do your best to clear your head from agenda and ask God to reveal his truth to you, because I just believe the day and age that we're living in, I think it's really important that you don't look for, I think in basically any topic, you don't look for confirmation bias. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to close this out tonight. Thanks for hopping on here, everybody. Hang on a second. I'm going to respond to one last thing, what Becky said here. She said, finding this out makes you feel like you're a baby, and like you don't really know anything because you're having to question all that you've ever, quote, known. I think it's a great place to be. That's pretty much the very best place to be, is desperate for truth at all costs. Like, I only want the truth. I don't want, I grew up in a family who literally, I just want you to think of this. The night my dad died, he was on his way. He had been at probably like a tailgating party before he went to the dirt track races. Okay. So they weren't really tailgating, so to speak, but it was a pre-party at one of his buddies' houses. And then they all followed each other out to the racetrack. He literally had an accident, and cause his heart stopped beating and he rolled his Tahoe. Okay. Well, as news of this tragedy started to, we had friends who were friends with the police. We had people calling. And as my grandmother, my mom's mom, got a tidbit of the information, someone had said, I think he turned around and was headed back. I don't think he was headed to the racetrack. And she says out loud to everyone who's standing there, the matriarch of our family says, well, that's what we need to tell Beth, my mom. I want her to think he was coming home to her, because he never did. I want her, like, don't tell her. Okay. I had this moment of clarity. My dad had just died. And this moment of clarity washed over me that what matters to all of these people that I've learned basically everything from is not the truth. It's perception. And I remembered thinking, okay, that's a great idea. Sarcasm included there. That's a great idea. Make her think that he turned around to come home and died doing it. That's a great idea. Make her spend the rest of her life worried, rather than just say the truth, which was something somebody said that wasn't true. And for some reason, I think of that all the time. I think, if the truth is going to hurt, then you just lie to someone, and that just creates its own problem. And also, it really spoke to the phenomenon of the way I was raised to glaze things over, and also almost this perception of you weren't guilty of a sin unless people find out. like I can remember my mom being like, don't go doing this stuff, but if you do, don't you freaking get caught. Like, don't go doing whatever teenage things. If you do, don't you get caught. If you do get caught, you call me, because I'm not going to go telling everybody. So it really doesn't come down to morals. It comes down to societal perception of you, right? And doesn't really come down to right and wrong. And
I have to chime in on this.
Okay. Okay.
Because as someone who's been through it, and I'm so thankful for redemption, and I now see the other side, it's betrayal. Because you believe something, whether it's the religion, your spouse, your friend, your company, your products. It's betrayal, and we have this emotion, this cognitive dissonance that happens. And then there's a sense of grief that happens with everything, that you're in denial. There's shock, there's denial, there's anger, and it's not linear. It goes back and forth, and you're trying to reason it out in your head, and then you finally come to acceptance. And the wonderful thing that happens with redemption and grace that happens there, or because of truth, because God is always truth and love, truth and love, truth and grace. And when you know the truth, then you choose. Do I believe this person? Do I love this person? Do I choose to stay with this company? Do I choose to take these products? And there's a freedom that happens because you choose, knowing the truth.
Yeah.
And it's actually more beautiful, but boy, it's an ugly street fight until you get to that point. And I have reckoned it with like Becky saying, I've questioned things about what I've been taught more in the last 6 months. And I've even said, Lord, this Bible was written by men, and I've always said it was the inerrant word of God, but what have they not told us? What do we not know? I'm questioning everything. I don't question you, but I question what other people, and there's been shame, and there's been guilt, and there's been grief, and there's all of this, because it feels like a betrayal. Yeah. That's the only way I know how to describe it. It all has felt like a betrayal because I have believed something.
Yes.
But I believe that when God gives us the truth, that it will be the most beautiful relationship that I've ever experienced with God. Yes. That is what I'm counting on, the truth.
The truth. You know, while you were saying that, it made me think of that scene from Miracle on 34th Street.
I thought you were going to say Steel Magnolias.
I'm trying to think. Steel Magnolias. Where he says, would you rather believe a lie that brings a tear, or no, a lie that the truth that brings a tear, or a lie that brings a smile? You're talking about Santa Claus, right? Miracle on 34th Street. And that's such a moving movie and all this stuff. And I mean, it's got all the Christmas time feels and all this kind of stuff. But every time I think about what you're talking about, the topic, it's like, I grew up in a household that would rather believe the lie if it brings a smile. I know I basically have separated myself from that completely. I'm not interested in a lie that brings a smile because it's temporary and it's false. And for the long term, and especially in the day and age that we live in, it's really important. Even if the truth, and having been lied to for so long, if having been lied to for so long would be so painful, even that, all of that, I believe also that some of the stuff that we're going through right now, where churches are determining whether they will continue on, whether they will be virtual, whether they will be whatever. I think we're about to see a mass awakening when people see political agendas fold out in church, and not just political, financial agendas and all kinds of things, where I believe people's eyes I pray that people's eyes will be open to only truth about agendas. I really grew up with a skewed sense. I was taught, I'm just being honest, I was taught a skewed sense of the distinction between truth and perception, like the truth about something and the way people will perceive you if they know the truth, and why it's okay to fudge and tell a little white lie, or even if you don't think you're lying, but if your perception is one way and it's different, then it's a mess. And I believe God's in the business of untangling that mess, and I believe we're about to watch it happen. I believe it's going to be phenomenal. So I'm excited. I don't think a lot of people will find it phenomenal. I think a lot of people will find it kicking and screaming, but that's okay too. So yeah, it is. I agree.
I can't quote this scripture, and and I hesitate anymore to even quote scripture, because everything I quote is from the King James Version Bible, because it's all I've ever known. But
Yeah.
there is a scripture in the Bible that I'm not going to be able to quote, but it's something about believing that He is, and He is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. And that is really and truly the crux of what I cling to right now, is that God knows I am diligently seeking Him. I think of I don't want to say who it is because she's not here, but there is an individual who is coming to grips with everything she has been taught all her life, in the church that she's been part of all of her life, and all of her family and for generations back. And she's having to come to terms with that, and it is gut-wrenching, it's brutal, it's heartbreaking for her. And here's the deal. I've never been part of that church, but I can tell you that I honestly feel like I'm going through the same thing right now as she is going through, because everything I've been taught now has come into question. And the only thing I have to cling on is that He will reward the fact that I am diligently seeking Him.
I've got that pulled up since you brought it up, and I think that one's pretty straight across the board from what I've read so far. It says, "And without faith it is impossible." I'm reading what we know. "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who approaches Him must believe that he exists and that he awards those who earnestly seek him. Is that the one you're talking about, first of all?
Yes, ma'am. That is.
Okay. So here's it says, and apart from faith, so without faith, and apart from faith, persons incapable, so it's impossible. Persons incapable to give pleasure to gratify entirely. And interestingly, they've got God in brackets, which means that he's contextually you would know from before or after this that it's talking about God. So to please God, but the word is actually to give pleasure to, or to gratify entirely. So let me go back up. And without, or and apart from faith, persons incapable of gratifying entirely, because they say assigning a reason. So because they've said anyone who, what it actually says is the definite article, including the feminine he and the neuter, to in all their inflections, the definite article. So anyone, they're saying basically women or men, anyone who approaches, comes near a deity, especially the supreme deity, God, must have faith, translated to believe, demonstrate, they translated to that he exists. Demonstrate, I am, he exists. Demonstrates, okay, what they've translated to say he exists is I am. The word is estin, E-S-T-I-N, and it means I am. The first person singular present indicative, a prolonged form of a primary and defective verb, I exist. So that he exists, and he is a rewarder, a renumerator. I don't know what that word means, numerator, a renumerator to those who seek out him. Basically, he, them, yeah. So that's basically, I didn't really see catch anything in that one, except for there are a few words that I would look up, like the word to please is, they said it's from the word euarestos, eurestos, which to me looks enough like the word eros, E-R-O-S. It's the first part of that, and it has the last part of that, like E-R-O-S. It would make me think that that's probably a Greek. So, and it means to please. I would probably look that up if I was doing this. But to gratify entirely. The rest of it looked right the way we have always heard it, Becky. So I agree that I agree 100% that I try to stay in that space all the time. That's the opposite of confirmation bias. I'm going to say that from now on. I like what you said, because opposite of confirmation bias is to be earnestly seeking and then being rewarded for seeking. And that's the space I want to be in, seeking God's face, seeking God's truth. Okay.
It reminds me of the Proverbs. What is it? Proverbs 25:2. It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's an honor of kings to search it out.
Search it out. Yeah. Ooh.
So we're all seekers.
Yes, we are. And I used to be told the phrase "guard your heart," and they used it in a way that was like, "Don't read anything else except for what we tell you here." Oh, if you were reading something that was outside them, guard your heart, girl, guard your heart. I'm like, you guard your heart. I'm seeking out a matter. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to know the truth. I'm not just going to sit here and just listen and gobble it up, especially if it doesn't rest well with me. And the fact that they start,
if you're really looking for truth,
yes,
then you shouldn't be afraid of it.
yes,
And if you have told me something and I'm questioning it, it should not put you on the defensive for me to go seek out the truth. And I'm saying, and I'm using you generally, my pastor growing up, for me to seek out the truth apart from what he said from the pulpit should not have been an offense to him. It should have been something that he would say, yes, girl, go find that truth. I support. Yeah. Instead, it was like, how dare you question me?
It's like trusting God to reveal it to you. Like, I can remember one conversation I had with somebody probably 20 years ago, and he saw what I was doing and thought that it was a little haphazard. And because I was like, all the fringes, I was looking at all the possibilities, thought he was a pastor. And he said to me, I said, I don't understand why this upsets you if I want to question something. He goes, oh, it doesn't upset me. He goes, I'm not even worried about it. And I was like, you're not? And he goes, oh no, all roads will lead you straight back to Jesus. And he didn't mean like all belief systems or whatever. He just meant whatever you're seeking out. He's like, if you're looking for truth, if that's what you're looking for and you don't have an agenda behind it, and you are asking God what is truth, it's going to always lead you right back to Jesus. And I was like, okay, I believe that. I said that wrong at first when I said all roads lead to Jesus. I don't believe that that's all. I'm not trying to say something like all roads lead to heaven and all roads lead to salvation or something like that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying though, if you are earnestly seeking truth and asking God for truth, then having faith that God will lead you, might lead you to study the history of the Bible. And then once you do that, you're like, oh, wow, history of how the Bible was put together. Even then you have to remember our five senses that are evidence. Like, this is going to sound really crazy, but I don't have proof that there were ever slaves. I believe 100% that there were, but none of my senses have ever seen it. So I don't know. And then even then, if my senses had seen it, articles, now I'm learning. And let me say this too, just so I'm not just specifically talking about race, because I also don't know that the Holocaust happened. I believe that it did, but I'm saying I don't know for a fact that there's so many things out there that even reading a textbook, even reading an article, even the strong evidence and the people's voices that say that it did and it did and it did, a lot of the stuff that we argue about these days, there's no longer identifiable proof. And I hope nobody takes that the wrong way, because that was like that's the hot topic right now. That when I look at it, I go, oh, I think there's strong evidence that there was racism and slavery and all that. Like, that one tilts on over, like, for me. But it was also one that I'm willing to think, how much of this has been glorified one way or the other in a textbook. And I don't mean, I even mean like from the perspective of a slave owner, like how much of our textbook has been slanted so that the people that came over here as the frontiersmen, to make them be a little more glorified than what they really were. You know what I'm saying about their approach and the way that they took land away from the natives and all the things that they did and how they owned slaves. But really, I don't have any evidence of any of it. Yes. Yeah. I don't have any evidence of personal evidence of any of it except for what I read. And even then, that's why I've been telling myself recently, I'm reading an article. I don't know anything about who wrote it. I'm reading a textbook. I have no idea what their agenda was. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then if you really start applying that to everything you've ever learned, there aren't very many things in this life that are absolute. You know, my brain, sometimes I have to tell my brain, stop for a while because it's too much. Too many things to think about. Don't bring in a new topic. We don't have these other ones solved yet. Okay. And also, I want to end by saying this last thing, and that is anything I ever say, you are collectively invited to and encouraged to research for yourself and ask God, more importantly than research, ask God for yourself, because the last thing I want is a mark in my report card that says I led people astray. I have no desire of that in my heart whatsoever. I don't have any agenda in regards to all this. Like, in fact, I kind of like the more I was getting, no, I know you didn't. I just want everybody to know that. I didn't think that you did. But to me, the more that I felt myself getting put into something that would call myself a ministry and people suggesting that I should suggest, the more I felt like nauseated and turned off for me personally, because I don't think I personally am well-rounded, educated, all these things enough, because I have so many questions in my own head that I didn't really want to be me personally, where I stand on things. I don't want to be telling people what this means and what that means, because I find so many, basically what I would say, what I would nicely call typos. Like, I find so many things that I go, that isn't what they're teaching. That's what it says. That's not what they're teaching about things. So, okay, for real, closing it out. Y'all have a great night. I'll get these loaded in the morning. Night. Thank you for all your input. It's wonderful to bounce these things off of good friends. Good night, you guys.
Thank you for doing this separately, because this was great. I like that you did the separate recording. I really, really, really have enjoyed this, and thank you so much.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad for that feedback, because that's something I kind of intend to do in the future. I think it's important to keep it separated so that we can get down to business if we want to. Business and then this business. Okay, y'all have a good night.